This summer, members of the Green Party of England and Wales will be voting to elect a new executive, commonly known as GPEx. Now, GPEx is responsible for the day-to-day management of the party, for its financial well-being, its reputation, and so on. Now, members of GPEx are elected to specific portfolios, and today I've got one of the candidates for the external communications post. Before I introduce them, I just have a quick thing to ask you, which is that you scroll down right now and hit that subscribe button. It means that you won't miss out on any of the other interviews that we're putting out or any of the other videos that Bright Green releases in the coming weeks and months. So hit subscribe, it doesn't cost you a penny, and it means that you'll be kept in the loop. So without further ado, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined today by Dylan Lewis-Creser. Dylan, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you very much, Chris. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm suffering a little under the heat, but just about getting by. So to kick us off, hopefully a straightforward question: how would you improve the Green Party's comms?
So I think the Green Party have made a series of missed opportunities in terms of our comms over the past couple of years, and the recent examples that jump out to me would be the recent rail strikes with the RMT and issues regarding the monarchy with the Jubilee. A lot of our comms around those two issues were very muddled and were not as strong as I would like to see it. For instance, with the rail strikes, the Green Party took a while to respond to them, and when they did respond, they responded in what I thought was a lackluster way, but only referencing other members, referencing what Carla thought, rather than saying explicitly the Green Party supports these strikes, the Green Party supports workers. And around the monarchy, they did not make explicit our commitment to republicanism and ending the monarchy. So I think our comms need to better reflect party policy and views of members, rather than being pigeonholed into a very selective idea of what certain members think on GPEx, because ultimately the Green Party is one of the most democratic parties in the UK, and I think our comms need to reflect that, because party policy is membership policy and should be reflected in our external comms. And I'm not saying that we have to broadcast every single party policy all the time, but I'm saying we should prioritize what makes sense in a specific scenario.
So I'm going to pick up some of those things a little later on. Before we get to that, I wanted to ask you why you think that you're the right person to improve the Green Party's comms.
Yeah, totally. I think I have a strong experience in social media coordination with my local party, and also in previous roles as I was the chair of the under 18 Young Greens for a year and a social media officer for them for a year beforehand. And I was the person who controlled their comms and their social media for that time. And we experienced rapid growth on our social media platforms during that time. We were able to get tweets out and social media posts out to a wider membership than just our under 18 Greens or just Young Greens, and up to the wider Green Party membership and to the public at large. And so I think we need, I think I have the experience of being able to coordinate and be able to say these campaigns should be prioritized. This is how we need to format it. This is how we need to express ourselves to the right audiences to get it beyond our little green bubble, because that is really what we're in. We need to remember the vast majority of people aren't Green Party supporters. Unfortunately, they're not Green Party voters, but our policies are popular, and so getting that out there is very important. And I think I'd be good for that. I also have strong experience working in internal Green Party structures from my work as LGBTIQA+ Green Secretary and in other roles. I have been on Polcom, a political committee, and which is the committee that does the day-to-day political handling of the party and understands what our comms needs to be, as well as being an elected member of E&D committee. I'm able to effectively navigate the hurdles around the party to be able to get what we need done. And I'm not saying that the other candidate isn't able to do that, but I think that my experience as especially a younger member who has a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of drive to get what we know we need to get out, what messages and what policies we need to communicate out there very effectively. I think I'm a good person to do that.
So you've talked there about a number of things, but you know, in relation to, for example, running social media channels and that kind of thing. Now, obviously, the external communications officer on GPEx isn't running social media channels. It isn't doing the day-to-day management of comms. It's giving the kind of political oversight of the Green Party's communications work externally, but also providing kind of oversight of the comms team in the Green Party office, so the staff. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit about how you see yourself working with staff to kind of deliver the things you talked about in terms of improving the Green Party's comms, to steer them in a direction that enables them to kind of deliver the messaging and communication strategies around, you know, social media and press and media that would enable the Green Party to grow in terms of its electoral success.
Yeah, so our staff team does amazing work, and I'm not sure any of us can disagree with that, but it's the direction coming from the external, as you said earlier, the direction coming from the external communications coordinator that will guide what they're putting out. And I think it's really important that if I were to be elected, that I would prioritize what I take a very active role in guiding them and supporting our staff team into saying these are the campaigns of the political time we're in, whether it's this week, this month, or anything like that, depending on obviously how long this campaign or this event would be going on for, to say that, oh, this week we need to put strong policy, we need to put strong comms out on workers' rights, for instance, with the recent vote for strike on ASLEV. I think that will be very important with ASLEV, the train drivers. I think that will be very important very soon, that we are not making the same mistakes as we have previously, and that I would be with the staff team, talking with them and making sure that they understand the political strategy that we're really going for, which is to be bold, to be eye-catching, and to grab the attention of people who like our policies but might not think of themselves as Green voters for a number of different reasons. And so the comms team in the staff would need to be able to take that direction and push it forward. I'm not saying that I'll be micromanaging everything they're doing, because it's a team ultimately, and I would just be the oversight for that. But I think understanding that there would be a change in the way that we're communicating with people, there'll be a change in being more proactive with press, reaching out to media organizations rather than waiting for invites ourselves, with things like BBC Question Time and on things like LBC, which we've seen Zach Polanski do amazing work on. And it shows that when we are proactive, when we do get our voices out there, and when we do work cooperatively and collaboratively with teams, that we're able to get our voice out there and convince and win hearts and minds.
So one of the things you talked about there is reaching people who don't necessarily see themselves as Greens or as Green voters. So it's a kind of a significant portion of effective comms work is understanding of audience, who the people is that you're trying to speak to, the vehicle through which you're able to speak to them, and the messages that they need to hear. So at the moment, who do you think are the kind of key audiences, demographics, and so on that the Green Party ought to be speaking to in the current political context, and how would you ensure that the party would be able to reach them?
So the Green Party is, in my view, a very broad church. We're able to appeal to a large group of people, and so there's not one specific demographic that we are just appealing to. But I think an important, just personally, I think an important demographic to be especially appealing to, would be young people, people under 30, under 35, because they are going to be the voters and the leaders of the future, and they're the people that more actively are involved in active political activism and political work that way. And so getting them on side, we know they agree with our policies. We have strong policies on the climate, as we've seen with the climate strikers recently, and a broad range of our social policies are supported. For instance, across the entire UK, 50% of people support self-ID trans people, 48% support UBI, 65% support a £15 an hour minimum wage, which is all Green Party policy. And that policy strength and that policy support is even stronger among young people. And so I think we need to be directing a lot of attention towards them. But also, I know this might sound slightly contradictory, but we can't be ignoring any individual demographic, because they are all important to making a broad church and making a party that can win elections and that can bring in support and ultimately, hopefully in the future, form government and make positive change, because we can't simply be appealing to one or two demographics to do that. We will remain a smaller party by doing that. We see other parties like Labour, the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats having wide ranges of support, and the Greens are starting to do that as well. And I think we need to reach people where they are rather than having them come to us. And so we know our policies are supported, but we need to make sure that we're getting to those people, and we're not giving up our values, but we're explaining our values in a way that makes sense to them, and it would be tailoring your approach on comms based on the audience you'll be dealing with. And so rather than changing policy, so if we were speaking to younger people, I would more emphasize the Young Greens and Young Green policy. And compared to if I was speaking to Green Party members, were speaking to a wider audience, you'd emphasize things like the climate, things like universal basic income, to emphasize our wide reach.
Just to unpick one of those elements a little bit. So you in part of your response there, you said that the Green Party can't just be appealing to one or two demographics or kind of sections of society. And you kind of suggested that if you look at the other major political parties in the UK, that they don't do that. They don't appeal to one or two demographics, and they kind of seek to garner support from sort of everyone, as in a kind of as a sort of amorphous block. I wanted to challenge that a little bit, because it's pretty clear if you look at kind of any data from opinion polls or from election data, that political parties have electoral coalitions that are made up of different groups of people with different interests. So if you look at the Conservative Party, you know, their electoral coalition at the moment is made up of homeowners and pensioners in towns in the north of England, and their traditional voting base in the south of England, in the home counties, in kind of rural areas, that have a particular set of interests. The Labour Party's coalition has traditionally been made up of you know, working class voters in the north, students, young people, ethnic minorities and renters has been the electoral coalition that Labour has traditionally held together, arguably throughout its entire history, with the exception really of the Blair years, where they started to pull from Middle England a little bit. And part of that is because the parties represent particular interests, and the Green Party, you know, in its policy platform, in its vision for a society, is seeking to completely overhaul the economic and political system. And there are some people who will benefit from that, and there are some people who will lose out from that. And I guess the question I have for you there is the kind of the assessment that you made, that, you know, the Green Party needs to be a broad church, needs to appeal to all different types of people. The challenge I would put is, if you're trying to appeal to everyone, you will end up appealing to no one. And actually, the party has a certain vision and idea of what society should look like that there are clear beneficiaries of and there are clear losers of. So surely we should be targeting our communications at those people that are going to benefit from the transformation that we want to see.
I think definitely, but we need to remember that Green Party policy is beneficial and transformative to all. There are obviously some people that will lose out, so the ultra rich will lose out, and I don't think we should be directing our comms towards appealing to them. But in terms of sorting out the climate emergency and ensuring social, economic, environmental, and racial justice, that does appeal to a wide range of people. It would not be giving up our values or changing our values in order to appeal to these people, appeal to different groups of people, but it would be understanding that as of current, the Green Party is a very white and middle class party, and that we can't win elections, we can't win national elections based on just that. We need to make sure that we are reaching out across different divides. We are fundamentally a left-wing party. I think fundamentally we are a left-wing party that believes in transformative change to our economic system. But that does not mean that we have to stick to that simply socialist, social democratic level of support. We can move out towards more liberal people, and I would say, but it's not that we're changing our message and we're changing our policies and our comm strategy to reach out to those people. It's that we are providing the values that people agree with. People agree with Green Party values overwhelmingly in this country, but it's making sure that they are able to hear those Green Party values where they are. And I do agree with you that these major parties do have general coalitions in which they have stronger support, but mostly they do try and get support from a wider range of people. For instance, from the Labour Party, you've seen the rightwards lurch of the Labour Party with things like cutting corporation tax and cutting VA and cutting taxes on some things, and that shows that Labour is trying to appeal to, as you said before, the Tony Blair Middle England set. And I think the Green Party should be above that and able to just project our values out more, and rather than changing our value and our policy to gain voters. And I think it's important to make a distinction between those two.
So I want to move on to issues of messaging. So, we're right now this week, as we're recording this, we are in a major heat wave that's kind of indicative of the rising extreme weather that we're experiencing as a result of the climate crisis. We've got, the cost of living crisis is biting with inflation soaring, and a wave of industrial action from increasingly militant trade unions taking place across the country throughout the summer. We also obviously have a kind of the political class in crisis over in the fallout of Boris Johnson's resignation. In that context of this kind of this series of crises that are taking place within our politics at the moment, what do you think the key messages of the Green Party should be in that context?
So I think the Green Party needs to emphasize our commitment to intersectional justice in this way, and that one crisis is linked to another. So I think the political integrity crisis is linked to things like climate change, with people not being able to take responsibility, politicians not being able to take responsibility for their actions and for the damage they're doing to our climate, and politicians not being able to take responsibility for the cost of living crisis, which is causing these strikes. And I think we need to ensure that the Green Party is emphasizing that we are different, we are an antidote to the status quo, and that we are a group of people, a group of interest activists who want a better society for all of us. And I think that would be a key position that I would push out for comms, that we are different. We are not funded. We are not linked to the political establishment. We are the party that can really change up the system. And I think we need to also make sure our commitment to, and our solidarity to marginalized people and striking workers throughout the summer, because we've seen with, for instance, the train strikes previously, that 45% of people supported the train strikes, supported the rail strikes, but no major political party came out explicitly as pro-strike, as pro-union. And so I think that's a political niche and a political vacuum that we can fill as a proudly left-wing party, taking up the space of the what used to be where the Labour Party was, as a strong workers' voice, and also fighting for things like a Green New Deal. So I think that is something I would especially push out, is our solidarity with workers and with making sure that we are not the same. We do not shift our values to gain voters. We convince voters, we win hearts and minds to our values.
So the Green Party currently has a list of spokespeople on a whole host of different kind of issues, loosely pegged to, you know, the positions that there are in the cabinet. Now, I think most people would accept that the party over the years has not made best use of the kind of spokespeople that we have, and I think if you were to ask most members, let alone most members of the public, to name our spokespeople on a whole range of issues, they would have absolutely no idea who they were. So the external communications role has kind of some oversight over the spokespeople and the process of appointing them, and also the process of supporting them. How would you better support the spokespeople that we currently have in order to assist the party in meeting its electoral ambition?
So we have some amazing spokespeople that have been recently elected. You have Rhea Patel as Equality and Diversity spokesperson. You have Matt Edwards. You have Jonathan Elmer. You have all these amazing voices that we're not, as you said, we're not utilising enough. And I think part of that is about being proactive with our media and with our press, that we want to push out more green voices. We need to push out that these are the people that the media should speak to on these issues. And the current spokesperson roster, I'm slightly concerned at the layout of it, because it's not entirely pegged to what the cabinet positions are, and so it makes it more difficult for press and media to find the Green Party spokesperson for them. So they just don't try. They ask the Conservatives, they ask Labour, they ask the Liberal Democrats. They can't find the Green one, and so they just don't ask. And so I think that would be a change that I would make to spokesperson positions, is that we need to make sure that they're lining up with current government, like cabinet roles, to make sure that we are getting as much use of them as possible, and also about being, as I said earlier, more proactive about reaching out to media organisations by saying, this is our spokesperson on energy. How about you speak to them about the energy crisis and the cost of living crisis, and invite them onto your show, rather than waiting for that organisation to come to us or ask, do you have someone to go on this show? Because ultimately we're not going to get anywhere without being strong and bold. We're not going to get anywhere without being eye-catching and saying we're different, we're a strong, powerful movement that can change this country for the better. And so that's something I would especially do. And also, we should emphasize in our election strategies that these spokespeople become elected, and these spokespeople get roles. So they should be, a lot of them are already councillors. So I know, for instance, Rhea Patel, they are a councillor in Croydon. I know Matt Edwards is a councillor. I know Jonathan Elmer is a councillor. But we need to make sure that they are getting these high profile positions and being more visible, rather than being relegated to a subsection of a page on the party website that people barely read.
So I want to move on now to talk about some of the kind of more general aspects of the role of GPEx. So, well, yes, if you were successful, you'd be elected to a specific portfolio of external communications, which is what we've been talking about so far. You'd also be a member of GPEx, and would bear the responsibilities that come with all GPEx members around decision making on the party as a whole. So I wanted to put something to you, which is just what do you think is the biggest challenge facing the Green Party right now?
I think the biggest challenge right now is member unity, and is about making sure that our members are feel safe in the Green Party, quite frankly, because a lot of members don't feel safe. For instance, I'm non-binary myself, and the rampant transphobia that we're seeing in this party is making me and so many other trans members feel so unsafe in the party that so many are withdrawing and leaving, and that's causing a major problem because it's primarily young people in the Young Greens who are activists, who are getting out there, canvassing and campaigning and winning elections for us, losing those activists because of transphobia and because of a whole host of other issues such as institutionalized racism and a lack of accessibility to groups. I think that's a real high priority for me on this list. If I was elected to GPEx, and I would work with other GPEx members to make sure, and with GPRC to make sure that transphobia is not acceptable in the Green Party, because it is contrary to policy, it is contrary to Green values, and it shouldn't be acceptable to be abusive to trans and non-binary members in this party. Obviously, that's easier said than done, but it's something that members have been screaming out for. And without it, we're going to have a real crisis. We already are having a crisis of members leaving, and that causes problems with things like finance and with activists and with winning elections. And so we need to make sure that as a political party, we have the financial backing, but also the activist backing to make sure that we're able to get out there and campaign for what we know is right.
So you touched on what was going to be my next question, which is around issues of discrimination and diversity within the party. So for some context for viewers watching, we have a deputy leadership election ongoing at the moment, and all four of the candidates in that election are men from London. We also have the Green Party as a whole has a real problem when it comes to racial diversity. If you look at the top from top to bottom of the party, there are the people who are in elected office, who are running regional committees, who are on kind of governance bodies, whatever element of the party it is, it's overwhelmingly white. And of course, what you've just alluded to there, Dylan, is the kind of scourge of transphobia that is being whipped up by the so much of the media and increasingly by the Tory party, has infected elements of the Green Party too. So you talked there about some of the things that you would like to see, but I guess my question to you really is, what practically would you be doing as a member of GPEx to tackle these issues of discrimination and diversity within the party?
So one thing is, we saw with in the previous term with spokespeople, there was a notable person who holds transphobic views was selected to be a spokesperson back previously, and I think that was a major oversight, because that gives legitimacy to those views in this party, and we need to make sure that I would ensure that no one who holds those views and holds views antithetical to Green values is selected as a spokesperson, because they are the people that have clout, they have power, and they have reach in the party. And so having those views legitimized in that way is a real problem. Obviously, this cannot be a one-person thing. I'm not claiming to be a fix-all to these issues. I'm not claiming to be able to solve transphobia and racial injustice and accessibility for disabled people overnight. But I would work very, very strongly with people like the Equality and Diversity coordinators, Zai and Rashid, who are both thankfully people of colour, and we need more people of colour in positions of power in the Green Party, and work with GPRC, who have the power to have worked with the disputes committee to ensure that our dispute system is working as effectively as it can, because as many Green Party members who are active know, the disputes committee and the disputes system is currently so backlogged and it's broken, and we need to make a real change to that. So I would work with people like the management coordinator, whoever is elected there, to make sure that that's working. And we need to encourage people who are gender diverse, people who are trans, people who are people of colour, disabled people, young people, to stand and to run for these positions, because nothing can change without people in power making the right decisions.
So before I move on to my final question, I just have to say that the person that Dylan referred to there on the spokesperson list has consistently denied that they hold transphobic views or that they've made transphobic comments. So my final question for you, Dylan, is a slightly flippant one. Who in the Green Party inspires you the most?
I think currently the co-chair of LGBT+ Greens, Rhea Patel, is a massive inspiration to me. They are recently elected councillor in Fairfield and Croydon. They co-chair of the Dyker Fund, which was set up in honour of the Green Party's former Mayor of Manchester candidate, who sadly passed away. They have been campaigning endlessly for queer rights, for people of colour, for accessibility, for anything and everything, for fossil-free pride, for all these amazing things. They have been constantly giving their all and doing it so well, and I would just hope that I could be some of what they've been doing, because they really inspire me and help me to go on and make this party a better place. And it's people like that. Also, my local Green Party councillors, Des Dell in North Northamptonshire, his campaigning work has been excellent, and all these amazing Greens who support each other and who work together to create great things and do great green things really make me feel good. But I would say, yeah, number one would be Rhea Patel.
Thank you so much, Dylan. So before I let you go, where can people find out more about your campaign?
So I have a website. It is dylanlewis-creser.co.uk, and that has a list of my policies and endorsements from me. And also you can find me on Twitter, Creser Dylan Poll, and I tweet a lot.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time, Dylan. So for members watching, voting will open on the 1st of August and will run for around a month. Before I let you go, I just have a few things to tell you before you do. So firstly, I said at the beginning, I'll say it again now, please do scroll down and hit that subscribe button. If you found this video useful and interesting and engaging, you will never miss any of the other interviews and videos that we put out if you subscribe. The second thing is, I'm sure you've heard lots of things in here that you agree with. You may have heard some things that you disagree with. Whatever your thoughts, please do let us know in the comments down below and keep the conversation going down there. Penultimately, Bright Green, it may surprise you, doesn't have the backing of big business and billionaires. Instead, we rely solely on the kind and generous contributions and donations of people like you. So if you are able to, please do head to bright-green.org/donate and set up a regular donation so we can keep putting out videos like this. And finally, these videos, these interviews aren't the only things we're putting out during the GPEx elections, or indeed the concurrent deputy leadership election. We'll be putting out lots of news stories, comment pieces, analysis on all the elections that are going on, and you can find all of that at our website, bright-green.org, to follow these elections as they go. So that's all from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all very, very soon.